Good evening, good evening. This is the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. I'm Cliff Kelly. It's Friday, TGIF Day, the 28th of June. And, of course, we are on iHeartRadio. So if you have a smartphone or a tablet, simply download the iHeartRadio app and take us wherever. And remember, you can always listen live at WVON.com. And when you do, we always ask that you participate in the daily listener poll. Today's question is, what is your assessment of Zimmerman's trial? Prosecution witness Raquel Jantel. A, raw and real. B, a disgrace. C, don't know. I think she did a job. Okay. And of course, the current video, Gabrielle Union brings crowd to tears about being black in Hollywood. And of course, we are Black Music Month. And the One Band, One Sound is today. It's War, known now as Low Rider. And by the way, they will be at the Taste of WVON that you've heard. And this is just a great in-depth look at the bands that were part of the soundtrack to your life. You know, it's just great. It comes 6 days a week. 6 times a day, rather. And if you miss it, you can always go to WVON.com and get it. And we thank ComEd, Toyota on Western, and the Chicago White Sox, okay? We are continuing the Cliffhanger Roundtable with some great roundtable guests. And, of course, our question about the N-word and that some people are disturbed. We make so much of a big issue about that. But nevertheless, nothing good happens from it. That black folks are worse off now with the schools going down. Can't even keep the mental health clinics open, so forth and so on. But people are going to scream about the use of the N-word. And we have with us, as I said, some great guests, and we are pleased to have them with us. We have Professor Neil Lester, Professor Lavelle Anderson, and Professor Kwesi Harris. And gentlemen, thank you. We're trying to get through some of these calls. Torrance called. He was a 51-year-old who said it's part of the culture. Some people are saying we're too sensitive. There are other important issues, Torrance said. And he talked about the two white boys talking to each other using the N-word. And, of course, we're using it, you, my, N, you know. Who wants to start on that?
Let's take a stab at it.
Good. That's Professor Anderson.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
As one of my colleagues mentioned, if this is a conversation, an internal conversation, right, about use among black folk, then we might do well to separate uses of the word commercially, right, among rappers and in films and in literature, from just the ordinary, everyday uses in black communities, right? I think that if you're in the community itself and you're in one of these conversations, like you have a different experience of the word in those private moments than you might when it's used publicly. So my suspicion is that he was holding on to a certain endearing kind of use of the expression that happens sort of within these intimate conversations. But he was separating that from, the use of the expression publicly by rappers where it gets taken up by people outside of the black community.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything?
Well, anytime...
This is Professor Harris?
Yeah, this is Brother Kwesi. Yeah, Cliff. Mm-hmm. Anytime you put anything out into the universe, you give other folks credence and ownership to use it. And that's why it's very, for me, it's at some point we have to be very mindful of, before we spit, what are we spitting? What are we putting out there? Because, I remember the minister saying this once before, Minister Farrakhan, that we can't curse other people if we keep cursing ourselves. And that's some of the things we engage in. We engage in our own self-dehumanization to the point that we want to try to sometimes justify it and make it a term of endearment. I'm just mindful of growing up in the South when my grandmother would literally slap the taste out of somebody's mouth if they uttered that word. Yeah, because she had experience that, and I think that's one of the things that our young people today have not been afforded the opportunity to know those stories, to know the narrative Because a lot of times, and by all means, I applaud their creativity. I applaud their energy. But a lot of times when you leave folks to their own devices, they can create vices.
Okay.
Well, and also
Dr.
what's interesting is I'd like for those same people who are creating the rap or listening to the rap to go and read some W.E.B. Du Bois and read a little bit about double consciousness and read the ethics of living Jim Crow. Read, understand the history, and then it's about choice, not about blindly using language and claiming that in the last 30 years you can somehow change the meaning of something that comes with baggage. And I'll add one other thing. I do think when we're talking about words, my understanding and the work that I've done on this word shows that this word is unlike any other word in the English language. So, yes, I understand that we can change words, and we have a wonderful kind of verbal gymnastic ability to make fat, F-A-T, P-H-A-T. I know the spelling. I know all that. But I also know that when we're trying to change the spelling of that word and we're talking about, oh, well, it has the A or it has the A-H, we are fundamentally acknowledging, whether consciously or not, that there's something problematic with that word. And I also know from having read some slave narratives that masters, referred to their slaves with terms of endearment and that word.
Right.
So I want to know how we can reclaim something that we never owned.
Never owned. Gentlemen, what would bother me, and we see that there are African Americans going into Paula Deen's restaurants, and some people make excuses for. I couldn't go in there if I saw the menu and saw the Confederate bean soup. There's no. You got it, guys. There's no excuse for that. Oh no, the hell with this. I throw a bomb in this damn place. Confederate. No. No excuse for that. I know what the Confederates did. Let's go back.
Well, that might be more than soup too.
That's right.
Well, that goes back to your issue at the top. The question is is the N word more value than black people? And I start off saying that I don't know that you can separate that from black people because as I said, this isn't about Paula Deen using the word. This is about all the other stuff that went with Paula Deen's use of the word.
That's right.
This is not about Dr. Laura's use of the word.
Yeah.
This is about all the stuff that went around. This is about Michael Richards and talking about, 20 years ago you'd be strung up with a fork up your behind.
Exactly.
Or, that's what I'm saying this is about. When you talk about, for example, the National Hockey League last year when Joel Ward, I believe, the black guy on the Washington Capitals won the winning goalie, and immediately that younger generation went to Twitter and started calling him that word. But it was not just that word. They started talking about, we ought to hang him. And, when they started talking about Obama, it was about assassination.
Mm-hmm.
So these are not just things that are sort of randomly out of hip-hop. This is about anger. This is about intimidation. This is about violence. This is about death. This is about baggage. I don't know if you can reclaim that if it was never yours.
Gotcha. Let's take another caller. James, we really appreciate your patience. Thanks so much for holding.
Yes, sir. It was worth it. First of all, this is a talk show, I thought, and the talk show discussed more than one issue. And I think this is something that should be discussed, and they haven't been discussed enough. For instance, I heard a young black girl on this radio station went to Africa on some educational trip. When she got to the airport, she saw some Africans. Do you know what they said to her? "What's up, my hen?" I see young black boys, 9, 10 years old, talking about "in," and people talking about we shouldn't be discussing it. Yes, we should be discussing it. Now, one of the problems we have with this and the situation we find ourselves in is our lack of bona fide leadership. We should have been on top of this word from the beginning. All leadership should have been attacking whoever used this word in print, media, whatever. We should have been attacking it. That's why now it's so confusing because we didn't have the leadership to attack it. Farrakhan and Jackson and Sharpton, they're about 20 years behind this word. And let me tell you something. We know this for a fact. We don't have to be there. Emmett Till was called a minute in before he was murdered. And that probably was the last word he heard. And the people who planning our demise today, what do you think they refer to us as? No, this is real serious. This is real serious, and I'm glad you're talking about it, brother.
Thank you so much, James.
And Myrlie Evers talked about that too, as being the last thing she heard right before the
killing
shot that killed Medgar Evers.
Right,
so
exactly.
This is not about something we're making up.
Exactly, and we'll be back with our panel right after this.
Cliff Kelly on the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
It is 6:24 on the Talk of Chicago, and we continue with our Friday Cliffhanger Roundtable guests, and they are doing a great job. Dr. Neil Lester, Dr. Lavelle Anderson, both professors, and Professor Kwesi Harris. And we are particularly owe a debt of gratitude to Professor Lester. Thank you. We'll feed you one of these days, Doctor, when you come back. My producer said what you said. I want all of you all to know that are hanging on the line that our great guests have considered they're going to stay. We're changing things. They're going to stay over. So even if we don't get to you till after the bottom of the hour break, that is, stay with us. So we'll try to get to everybody. But we want to respond. Who wants to respond to James, who's the lack of bona fide leadership, that the reverends are 20 years late, and talked about with Emmett Till and all. Which one of you wants to respond to James?
Well, I think he makes a valid point, and as I mentioned as we were going off the air, is that Myrlie Evers makes that same comment when she talks about.
Yeah.
And I don't think that. I mean, there are lots and lots of modern day instances where the word is associated with violence. And there was an episode in Mississippi where a guy was run over by a truck, and the white guy, a high school student who did it, said, we just ran over one of those, and we're going to go get one. So, I can imagine Michael Donald. I can imagine any number of black deaths and murders and violations have been accompanied by that word. And trust me, when people were hanging from trees,
that's what I was going to say, Professor. Strange Fruit.
You can't tell me that word wasn't used.
Strange Fruit. You're absolutely right. That song. You're right. Absolutely. Mike from the Southwest side. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for holding.
Hey, how are
Mike.
you?
Go right ahead, Mike. Mm-hmm.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay. I wanted to weigh in on the Paula Deen situation. At first, I was struggling to figure, is she a closet white supremacist or is it something else? And I think that now I'm leaning more towards that she's not smart enough to be a white supremacist. I think that it's just completely out of ignorance, and that she is a sociopath, and that she is incapable of feeling what other people feel, that how insensitive she has been. And the reason I say that is because I saw a film clip of a show she was on, and she was introducing a black man that worked for her, and he was a very dark-skinned brother, and she made jokes about the hue of his skin, saying that, oh, we can't see you over there, don't stand in front of that, we can't see you, and they just yucked it up, and I just cringed at how insensitive she could be. And I think that it's more than a race. It's partially racial, but then it's also class, because I can't imagine her rubbing elbows with Oprah and addressing Oprah like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that people that are working for her, that she has under her thumbs, she somehow thinks they're beneath her, and people who have wealth, she treats them differently. But it's all out of ignorance, and the danger of us using these slurs ourselves is that we have other people thinking that they can go ahead and say these things, because I've come up on Caucasian youth and Latino youth who are calling each other the N-word as a term of endearment, and it's just totally bizarre to me.
One of the things, Mike, that she said was that she hears her African American employees using the word toward each other. And that's one of the reasons why she, didn't think it was that bad, because she heard them calling each other the N-word. But I understand exactly what you're saying. Thank you so much for your call. Before we take,
you're welcome.
Okay.
Well, she did say that she found it distressing, though.
Yeah.
She said, I was just so distressed that I heard it. I'm thinking, well, if you were distressed by that, why do you think, these other kinds of ways that you think about your employees who are black may not feed into their sort of, the kind of environment they're working in? Because keep in mind, this is a racial harassment suit. Is the vehicle through which we are hearing much of this.
But the interesting thing here, Professor, aren't the plaintiffs in the suit people who are not of color?
That I don't know.
Okay, if anybody knows that, because that's what I thought, which I thought was interesting.
That would be, I suppose that would be interesting too.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So if somebody knows that, please let us know, because that's what I was told, and I didn't check it out, and I should have.
Right.
Yeah. We'll be back with Professors Lester, Anderson, and Harris, and stay with us, and we'll come right back to our next caller as Lillian. Good evening. It's 6:37. This is the Talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON. It is Friday, of course, TGIF Day, and it is June 28th, and we're on the iHeartRadio app. So if you have a smartphone or a tablet, simply download it and take us wherever. And, of course, you can reach us through WVON.com, and also you can call us at 591-1690. And we are having a extended session of the Cliffhanger Roundtable because we've had such a great response to our panelists, and also, of course, to the callers. And you people hang on. Dr. Neil Lester is with us, who, of course, is professor of English at Arizona State University and has done specific work on this. And again, Dr. Lester, thank you for passing up the food. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Lavelle Anderson is a professor of philosophy at the University of Memphis, and also our good friend, Professor Kwesi Harris, Director of African American Male Resource Center at Chicago State University, and we appreciate that. And let me say this, our research group here has said, gentlemen, that yes, the plaintiffs are people not of color. And what they're suing about, among other things that you already know about, in the presence of Ms. Jackson, who is one of the plaintiffs, and notwithstanding her name, is not a person of color, so I'm told, and Uncle Bubba's restaurant manager and a vendor, Bubba Hare, stated that that's her son, should send President Obama to the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico so he could enrig it. Enrig it. I mean, crazy crap. And here's what she heard Paula say when asked if she'd like the service to wear it. I'm sure you heard about this. Well, what I would really like, this is a quote from the transcript, what I would really like is a bunch of little N-word to wear long-sleeve white shirts, black shorts, and black bow ties. You know, like in the Shirley Temple days. They used to tap dance around. Now, wouldn't that be a true Southern wedding, wouldn't it? But we can't do that because the media would be on me about that. Isn't that weird? I've just brought something else. Lisa Jackson, who claimed she was forced to quit her job as manager of Uncle Bubba's Seafood and Oyster House, is asking for damages based on racial harassment, claiming she has an African American adjacent, whatever that means. As for Jackson's proof, she's got African American ties. She points to her partner's biracial niece, whom Jackson claims is half black. Boy, that's really kind of pushing it, isn't it? Okay, so that's the latest. Wow. Okay. Whatever.
Well, but I guess I wouldn't want to exclude the fact that whites can be offended by the use of that word as well as blacks can be offended.
Exactly.
So I guess I'm not surprised. The point is that you can be offended if it offends you.
Exactly, Professor. And like you're saying, being a racist, of course, is not illegal. And in this situation, which she had what we call in law standing, unless she is an African American, and she is trying to prove to some degree. She says, as for her proof, she's got African American ties. She points to her partner's biracial niece, whom Jackson claims is half black. Well, still, I don't know how that, makes whatever.
Well, Cliff, Paula Dean did say on the Matt Lauder show, I is what I is, and I'm not changing. So what we're talking about is a mindset.
Yeah.
A mindset that she just hasn't let go of.
Right. Right. Well, she's done very well with it. I guess she felt no need to.
I is what I is.
Yeah. Okay.
She said, "I'm not."
As a person not of color, she can use that. She can kill the language. You know, you can't do that.
No.
Well, so much for the apologies that she made.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
And to claim that you don't see color, you just see what's in people's hearts.
Yeah. Good point. Black. Yes. Okay.
Well,
do
you see how this is bigger than the word, though? That's what I said. This is
and that's
bigger
what you
than the
said.
word.
And that's
this is a whole mentality.
Right. And that's what
you said. Well,
you know,
it gets back to like has anybody ever engaged in a conversation with someone of a different race or culture, and they say something that signals that they're seeing you as simply the color of your skin or your ethnicity. There's the thought, oh, you don't see me for who I am. You see me as other than you. Yeah. And at that moment, the connection is lost. So it goes back to taking back our humanity with words that give us life and not put these heavy weights on us that puts us down into the abyss of not being seen as valued or have self-worth.
Professor, let me take some calls before these people come after me. Lillian, thank you for your patience. Thank you, Lillian. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, Cliff, thank you. Yeah, I think the word should be consigned to the trash bin of history and never used again. I think it speaks to our low self-esteem, our inability to help ourselves as a group, our inability to unite, the inability to train our children to love themselves and love each other. And you guys talked about how Medgar Evers and Emmett Till and others who were murdered, that was the last word they heard. Well, what about the young boys that are killed, the young people that are killed in Chicago? Are the killers saying that word too? Yeah. You know, that word is offensive, and as one of your panel members said, probably the most hatred charged word in the English language. And we tried to prove to the world that we're so tough. We can bring it out into the open. We can sanitize it. We can spell it differently. We can say it differently. We can take the sting out of it. But you can't take the sting out of something that it has so much history and so much negativity to it. So we need to ban it and not stop using it. And I know that you discussed, you had the discussion about the book Huckleberry Finn. I am the lady that grew up in Kokomo, Indiana, and when I was in high school, the English teacher introduced us to a list of books to read, and she named Huckleberry Finn, and the boys in the back started giggling. I was the only black person in the class, and I didn't know what it was all about. I went home and asked my older sisters, and they told me what it was all about. And the next day, the teacher apologized, and she took that book off the list of recommended books to read. And so we can't disrespect ourselves by using each other, using the word over and over again, and allowing our young people to make money off of it and not expect other people to use it.
Lily, I'm just happy you survived Kokomo because the Klan, that's where the Klan started. Yeah.
But you know, my growing up in Kokomo prepared me for a whole lot.
I believe it. I've been to Kokomo.
And it was a real education and a real insight into what's going on. And, how can we, expect for the Paula Deans of the world not to use it when we, say it's okay for the rappers to use it? I'm a recent retiree, and I am a member of United American Progress Association, the organization. I'm a board member, and I, the organization founded by Dr. Webb Evans. Sure. And one of the problems that we have is, due to our low self-esteem, we don't support black businesses. Black businesses going out of businesses. They're selling out to Asians and everybody else, and every other group, Hispanics, Asians, everybody else can come here and prosper, and we don't prosper. That's all tied to our lack of self-esteem. And then when we allow ourselves to be trampled on and we trample on each other, then that invites other groups to come on and trample on us. They know that we are, they think that we're worthless because we think we're worthless.
Well
so
said,
I think the word should be
confined to the trash bin. Thank you so much, Lily.
Confined to the trash bin.
I don't think anybody can say any more than what she said. I think that was great. She's a wonderful lady, and to survive Kokomo is great. Let me go to another caller who's been holding a long time. Richard from the West Side. Thank you for holding, sir.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Professor Quasey, you pretty much summed it up before I even spoke, because as I was waiting on my call, waiting for you to answer my call, I was just thinking about, gays, they have spots on TV where, the lady comes up to say, you shouldn't be saying gay in that way, as a derogatory term, and I'm like, we can't do that for saying that word. Same thing, we need to.
Yeah,
it needs to be more than speaking to one another. We need to make more like a national ad or a PSA, because the gays do it all the time, Jews do it all the time, Muslims do it all the time. You cannot, the guys from South Park, they could draw the head of Muhammad on a cartoon.
Yeah.
You cannot do that.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's lines to everything, and you got to put a line to somewhere. It's a time to. It's always time to stop something, but it's always time to start anew or refresh what we should be doing all along. And that's all I want to say. Thank you for taking my call.
And thank you for holding and giving us that comment. Who wants to respond to that? Other groups have stopped and do things, but we haven't done that.
I think
Professor Anderson?
So I'm very sympathetic to, I'm sympathetic to, well, one, I'm skeptical that a ban would ever work, right? Censorship just doesn't seem to work and have that much of an effect on how we use words. But I'm also thinking about maybe the reasons why people have taken up the expression, right, and tried to use it in an alternate way. And I think my suspicion is that it has to do something with trying to construct a different story, right? So try to counter the racist white caricature of black folk, right? So you're hearing this, and that's what a lot of the word represents, right? Is a very negative racist stereotype, caricature of black folk, and so maybe these sort of appropriated uses of the expression are an attempt to rebut that. Now, we can have discussions about whether or not that's successful, whether or not it's a prudent strategy, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that as sort of a possible motivation for the use of the expression. And so when we're thinking about what to do with the word, right, we don't want to give up on rebutting the negative racist caricature of black folk.
Like some other groups have done. Absolutely. That's right. All right, we're going to come back. Our next caller. Thank you. Our next caller, when we come back, Michelle from Milwaukee. Hold on, Michelle. We'll be right with you. Just want to add, guys, that according to the latest legal documents, Jackson's niece, that's the plaintiff in this case, Black's niece is not black at all, not even a little. Paula says Jackson's partner has now admitted the niece is Hispanic, not black. And Paula is especially upset that Jackson alleged in her lawsuit that Paula used the N-word in connection with Bubba's wedding, yet has never offered a shred of proof that the word was used. So now Paula is asking the judge to fine the plaintiff with sanctions for creating a bogus racial harassment case. So who knows? I'll tell you, it's interesting. Michelle from Milwaukee, thank you for holding, Michelle. Michelle, are you there?
Yeah. I think that my sentiments are going to echo most of the callers. I think that at the very core of this conversation, that it's an issue of respect or disrespect of oneself. We have devalued it, and indirectly we have devalued ourselves, allowing other people to easily do so. I don't know how we marginalized 400 years of mistreatment, maltreatment, slavery, the most basic human rights, infringements that was done to African Americans, and then we turn around and try to figure out ways how to move beyond it. And so by some folks embracing that word, and I'm going to tell you, I'm a person who struggles with it. I catch myself, and it's a constant reminder every day not to use it because I've grown up hearing it. It's in the culture. It's in the most educated to the least of these around me. And so it is one of those things that we have to take responsibility for the way people use that word today, because as other folks have talked about, there are other groups of people. There are things you will not say about them. You will not use lightly. You will not make a joke of the way it's done. And so that's one of the biggest things for me is we are culpable, just like somebody mentioned Lil Wayne. And Emmett Till. When earlier this year, when Lil Wayne used Emmett Till's name to refer to how he would aggressively have sex with a woman. In a rap song.
Terrible. Right, I know it.
And it wasn't until people got in his pocketbook, Pepsi discontinuing their contract with him, for being a ad guy, that he really then began to appreciate the impact of what he done. But that's because we let these kids walk around not understanding that history, not retelling it over and over annually. And so I think that when we get upset, some of it got to start at home.
Michelle, great comment.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Raymond from Cleveland, I wanted to get you on. We are out of time because I've got to do something with the last few minutes that we have. And I was trying to give our professors a last word. But, guys, you've been responding to all of these people that we've been talking to. And Professor Lester, Professor Anderson, and, of course, Kwesi, listen, you folks have done a great job. And both of the Lester and Anderson, Messrs. Lester and Anderson, I think you've been with me a long time. I feel like, we need to send you a check for being a caller. And particularly Brother Lester, because he's missing his food. I told him. but listen.
Well, thank you for having the courage to have the conversation.
Yes.
It's not something that should be treated lightly, and I'm just was humbled and honored to be part of an esteemed group and to have been, able to hear such thoughtful callers who are really passionate about trying to resolve this issue.
Well, thank you, all three of you, and we're going to be calling you back because we didn't get to all the callers, and you guys were great, and thank you again. And have a great weekend, everybody. Okay.
Take care, brother.
All right. Thank you.